Have any idea what you'd have to look forward to if you stayed here? 9 chances out of 10, we'd both wind up at a concentration camp. Isn't that true, Louis?
I'm afraid Major Strasser would insist.
You're saying this only to make me go.
I'm saying it because it's true. Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
But what about us?
We'll always have Paris.
He's been my pal for as long as I can remember. He's brave, like a cowboy should be. And kind and smart. But the thing that makes Woody special, he'll be there for you, no matter what. You think you can take care of him for me? So long, partner.
I'll be right here.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Sing this song right now. Sing this song for last time. Sing the song.
Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell.
I get people off. I look for the one guy who isn't getting off, and I make him get off.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
You can't choke up this early.
I know. And for the last time on a full-time basis, Josh Adams.
You're that sweaty carpenter who hates me.
Visit us at IHateCritics.net, everyone'sacriticpodcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Critics Pod is our handle there. Follow us there for the reviews, trailers, any news we like to share. The podcast is there. All of Sean's reviews are there. I think I kind of said that. And then just, I don't know, follow us there, like us, do all those things that you're supposed to do on social media sites, and then share it with your friends so they can like us too and listen to the show. Patreon, IHateCritics.net/Patreon is the best way to help support the podcast. There's a PayPal link there, and there is also the merchandise link, podcast merchandise at IHateCritics.net. On Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, all your podcatchers. And I think that, rate and review the show, subscribe to the show, and we will read your reviews on the air. News this week is Josh's last episode. We'll get to that later on in the show.
I have shed 2 very tiny tears already. I've laughed, I've cried, I'm coming close to hurling. However, it's up to you how we finish it.
It is windy outside.
Yes.
We'll start with a little news. We talked about Almost Famous last week. Supposedly there's a musical potentially happening.
Yeah, Cameron Crowe posted it on his own website about it, and I guess he's part of it, licensing it, helping to bring it about. It's certainly an interesting thing. He's a guy who knows a lot about music, and Broadway rock and roll musicals can work. Rock of Ages was a huge hit. Maybe people don't care for it in our realm, but there were a lot of people on Broadway who love that stuff.
Yeah. And, I mean, I don't know. You can always mix in different songs, like they did with Rock of Ages, and you still kind of got to keep Tiny Dancer, I think. I mean, maybe they do something else. I don't know.
I'd see it. Of all of the Broadway musicals that you might bring to my attention, something based off of Almost Famous would probably be at the top of the list. There's a Broadway musical limit for me, though, where if you said Star Wars the musical, I wouldn't be interested in that. But something that's already based in music like Almost Famous, I think I could probably get down for that, even if they spontaneously broke into song.
As a completist, would you see an Aliens musical? You do like the Predator Alien movies.
You know what? I think I would. I'm interested in seeing that high school play with Alien and whatnot. Sigourney Weaver even showed up on set.
She's got nothing else to do.
No, she's spending the next 7 years of her life on James Cameron's Avatar set.
The next or the last?
Oh, wow.
Okay, the final Deadpool though is that I'll take Harrison Ford's death before Sigourney Weaver's death, right? I mean, they're not all that different in age, but at the same time,
he seems a lot closer to the grave.
He does, yeah, and he likes to fly planes, and she's more of a grounded person.
She likes to do her cameos as opposed to him just looks miserable whenever he's doing a cameo anymore.
If he's going to be miserable, though, why would he offer a voice to Secret Life of Pets 2? Like, that's not going to bring him any joy, is it?
I don't think he knows what he's offering his voice to. I'm pretty sure Anchorman 2, he didn't really know what he was doing. 2 new trailers. One was just for shits and giggles. I'll start there. It's I Spit on Your Grave 2. It's the actual sequel, directed by Miyazaki. Is that his name? And then his wife or ex-wife was the one who was raped in the first one and then killed everybody. She's back. And I don't know. I found it funny that they're making an actual sequel to this instead of one of the...
Well, he got to abuse her at a time when, it was kind of acceptable in movies to do that to your wife, and now he's going to just try and provoke people again, so good for him, I guess.
Is this something that they've got a trailer, so it's actually made or
this isn't a College Humor trailer?
No, it's...
Okay. I'm going to have to... I would have to see the first spitting on graves in order to understand how one also spits on a grave.
Yeah, and for me, like someone who doesn't mind the dark stuff, forget the offensiveness of it. It's just a bad movie on top of all that. Mm-hmm. So that's the main reason not to see it. It is so amateurish and just some terrible shots, long shots from really far away, shooting nothing. It's just a really poorly made movie. So I'm not. I don't know. Joe Bob Briggs loves it though.
What was the other kind of very, very low budget movie that wasn't Cannibal Holocaust that we watched and involved?
Last House on the Left?
Thank you. That's what I'm thinking of. I know they're not the same film, but bad things happen in both.
They get lumped into the same category a lot. That just far better filmmaking, really, is what it comes down to. But yeah, it's... I just thought it was for Sean, really. And then there's Gemini Man.
I like Will Smith being in a lead role again. It's been a while, and here he's playing 2 characters who were apparently related to each other. One was cloned from the other, I guess, and then they've been sent after each other to kill each other, which is kind of an interesting premise. And it's been a while, like I said, since we've seen Will Smith as a leading man as opposed to a part of an ensemble or a duo, and I'm into it.
I think the only thing that I would have needed is for them to say Ang Lee was directing the movie, and then I would definitely want to see it. He seems to be doing things that interest him most, kind of on the cutting edge of filmmaking, as his last film, the Halftime Walk movie that you talked about a lot, and I still have not seen. And I feel like if I did see that now, it's away from the theater. It wouldn't have maybe the same effect now that I know what I would be getting into as well. But you slap his name on something, and I'm on board. He's made a few of the better movies that I've ever seen. Will Smith himself doesn't really excite me as a lead, per se, and their marketing choice here of using the same font that has been used for every single science fiction action film, including iRobot for that matter. It's the same font as iRobot. If I have anything to leave from this show, it's that you guys think more about typeface than you used to. So I'm going to continue to do that. That being said, the trailer is okay. I know it's based off of a book, and that would mean that he's playing both the Gemini Man and he has played the Omega Man in I Am Legend, which is what that was based off of. So go figure.
Yeah, I thought as I'm watching, I'm like, oh, Will Smith might actually be back in a successful leading role, and then you throw Ang Lee's name on it, and I know he's not perfect either. He's had his duds as well, but for the most part, he's pretty solid. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. It's nice to have someone like that for Will Smith to bounce back from Aladdin with.
Yeah. We assume.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, the Aladdin trailers haven't bothered me as much as they've bothered the rest of the world, but we'll see when we get there. So what else? What came out this week?
Something was in the theater. It made over $300 million domestically and crossed the 1 billion mark worldwide.
1.2 billion.
Woo!
What?
Bob didn't see it.
Oh, did you really not get a chance to see it?
My son had a tournament this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, it rained on Saturday, so I was able to sneak out and go see it.
Oh. Well, all right. Well, that's good. That means at least you'll be able to. I think I'm going to be in the same boat as you, anyways. But anyways, go ahead.
No, I loved it.
Avengers Endgame picks up in the story in almost the immediate aftermath of the snap, which disappeared half of the humanity, or whatever it is, the half of the population of the universe. Right in the immediate aftermath, they're trying to figure out what to do and where to find Thanos, and Nebula knows where to find him, so they go looking for him, and they do find him, but unfortunately he's destroyed the stones. And so Thor dispatches him, and they return to Earth and cut to 5 years later. That's where we're jumping off at.
I am going to mention, this is a spoiler-heavy episode. If you care, you've probably already seen the movie. If you don't care, wait till you see it, then listen. I mean, so we'll stop you right now. We're not going to put it at the end. That's
because there's only one movie, and we've only seen one movie.
Correct. Yeah. So continue.
So we cut to 5 years later, and Scott Lang pops up again. Ant-Man. He's been trapped in the quantum realm for the past 5 years, and his machine finally spits him back out, and he goes looking for his family, which is a good scene, and then he finally goes to look for the Avengers, and he tells them about the quantum realm and about the possibility of time travel and literally a time machine. And what this could do is give them an opportunity to go back in time to places where they know where the Infinity Stones are and try and gather them before Thanos can get them, and use them to try and turn back time and bring back everybody who was disappeared. And like I said all along, that was going to happen. That they're going to use the time stone and turn back time and bring everybody back. They did have a twist on it,
yeah,
which was good. But I mean, it was again, you kind of knew what was going on here. The growth of the characters though in those 5 years is interesting. Each of them has a different path. Tony and Pepper go and have a baby, and Thor becomes the Big Lebowski, and. Yeah. Hulk becomes Professor Hulk with the combination of Banner and Hulk. Scarlet Witch, not Scarlet Witch.
Black Widow.
Black Widow doesn't cut her hair. That's pretty much, over the 5 years is what goes on. Hawkeye becomes a killer of bad guys on his own. And
I will say, you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in a movie like this. And kind of the major marks. We kind of predicted a couple of things that would happen. They're going to have to turn back time in some fashion. Mm-hmm. That said, I thought they did a pretty good job of being creative with it. I liked the moving forward 5 years and letting things happen, and Tony having a kid specifically. I did not care for the Thor stuff. I'm probably the minority on that. My brother thought it was amazing.
I wouldn't know if it's amazing, but I finally have something in common with Chris Hemsworth. I mean, after all of this time.
That wasn't real. Although I will say, when he was sitting down, you kind of see his man boobs. I'm like, God, he kind of looks like me with this shirt.
Guilty.
But it made me feel good. But yeah, I don't, for that part, I thought it was pretty, I was pretty happy with the way they did the beats you knew they were going to do, but they did it in their own little way and made it work. So I was cool with that.
I like this movie a lot. It fixed a lot of the problems that I had with Infinity War, mostly because it didn't have the problems that Infinity War had, which the biggest problems that film had for me were some of the characterizations. I thought the way that Infinity War handled the Guardians was awful. I thought they treated them like shit in that movie, and that really pissed me off. James Gunn worked very hard on those characters and building to the growth that those characters are going through, and Infinity War pissed all over that, and that really ruined that movie a lot. On top of that ending that I don't think worked at all for me. So this one, at least, we didn't have the Guardians there, so I guess that kind of sidestepped that until the ending. And then it was at the ending they did show the Guardians being kind of more like the Guardians, more like the James Gunn version of them, which is what I want, because he's put a lot of hard work into that. I loved what they did with Gamora. I thought that was really clever. That was a really smart way to bring her back into this story. The time travel stuff with Thanos was really smart. That battle at the end is fucking amazing. It's even better than the one in Infinity War for me. I thought that was way better done. As the hero for me was Ant-Man all along. Ant-Man kills throughout this entire movie. He's so great. America's ass was my favorite line in the entire movie. Just Paul Rudd was awesome. Him getting to grow into the giant Ant-Man and punch that fucking spaceship, that was cool. I dug it.
Yeah. I'm of two minds on this one. I think that it's one of the better Marvel movies in terms of scope and terms of attention to detail and whatnot. I think it's shot really beautifully, and you can see kind of where all of the money is on screen there. It isn't what I've been used to with this franchise, with a bit of a muddled sequence of action scenes thrown together. This one, I kind of felt the physics around it, even though you're dealing with thousands and thousands of pieces. There's something about the way that battlefield at the end is shot at Avengers compound or whatnot that really looks like a war in a comic book, where you can't see everything, but you can kind of get an idea of the scope of how vast the armies were clashing against each other, and it looked slightly apocalyptic with everything in the sky and whatnot. I really dug that. I dug the immediacy of how that came to be, too. All of a sudden, Thanos is there, and he just lights everything up. That got me there. And all of the things, though, that were super memorable for me happened within the last half hour or so. It was a slightly slower build-up. And so I'm of two minds on this. I enjoy some of the things that they did with the movie, some of the ends that they tied up. I thought it was neat how they seemed to play by their own rules with time travel. I've got a wife who loves the subject, and so she's got an actual diagram at home of how everything seemed to have worked. And we've talked ad nauseum, like hours, about this movie already, about time travel. And we're not sold on it, okay? But of course we're not. What that helps me do, including the end of the film, the very, very end, is realize, you know what? This is about right. I don't care. It's like I do and I don't. By saying I don't care, I think that's a little blasé, but that's the end point. This doesn't matter to me as much as I wanted it to. And I think it comes back to how little emotion is put into these movies, how much it's kind of like it's not on their sleeve. They don't wear it on their sleeves the same way because they've got to hit certain marks, right? There can't be like a super intense gory scenes or scary scenes or anything like that. You've got to have a battle. You've got to service your fans, etc., etc. You've got to sell toys, etc., etc. Okay, I hate to be so cynical, but I'm coming to the end of this and I'm thinking, boy, did this really offer me the kind of closure and feeling that I thought I would have on this? And it didn't. It really didn't. I think that they did a nice job solving some of the problems or the storylines of the first 20-some movies. But really, I guess who cares? It's neat, but I'm not sitting here saying this is so wonderful that I can't wait to watch it again. I think it's just an accomplishment. I'll have to give it its due that they were able to do this and do it well enough that it's consumable and enjoyable, but not. I don't feel the same way about Marvel that I do Lord of the Rings, Aliens, Star Wars, or DC movies. For that, I hate to say that, but honestly, even the DC movies that we've talked about, like Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman, that we've liked, I got more out of those emotionally, and I think that means that I am interested in somebody that's going to go a little further with this type of story. a bit more emotion in there, you know? I hate to put this down, but it's just not great.
I thought it was great. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. To me, it's kind of like that band who's, you know, they've been around 10, 11 years, and they got to release the greatest hits album. They literally go back to a lot of the movies and reshoot some of the scenes, and it's cool, it's neat, and, you know, if you want to hear those songs again, great. If you listen to the radio and they're overplayed, you're kind of sick of them, so that could be where the slow pace comes from. That said, there's 2 new songs, so, you know, there is some moments, you know, the Black Widow, Ronin, or whatever his name is, Hawkeye scene was pretty awesome, pretty powerful. I thought the I Am Iron Man stuff at the end was fantastic. I thought the way, knowing that was going to happen, and still the way they did it, and I mean, I heard audible crying in the theater when that happened. I thought they nailed the emotion with that. Then it kept going for another 20 minutes, and it was still cool. I liked what they did with Captain America. I don't care, and I think part of the issue may be 20-some-odd movies in 11 years is a lot. You know, Star Wars hasn't even done that. Lord of the Rings may have done it in hours, but not in actual movies. Joke fell flat.
No, it didn't fall flat per se. I just didn't want to respond and give it the respect you were hoping.
I don't need response. So I guess I kind of get it, but it's not. It's only closing some chapters, and it's continuing other ones on. So I guess it did a good job of ending Iron Man's story and Captain America's story while keeping the world going. I don't know.
Why didn't Nebula tell Hawkeye and Black Widow what would happen when they were going to get the Soul Stone? Because she knew that. She knew that a sacrifice was necessary.
Same reason probably that
Doctor Strange
didn't tell
Iron Man that what to do, you know, or how the one way would work.
Why didn't she tell the entire team? That way they could make up a decision as to who would go.
That's a good question. It's something that of all of the Marvel films, this is the one that I have the most questions about. A lot of them are time travel related. Kind of like the first time that they go to see Thanos. Why would you not return to that scene or the Battle of Wakanda or whatnot? Why would you not return to that one? Because all that Thor would have had to have done was do it correctly that time. I'll answer that for myself later.
But that's that would have been an alternate. They would have just created an alternate timeline, as opposed to they explained that really well. Actually, because going and getting the stones from the time they're in and returning them to the time they're in is all part of the timelines.
Yeah, and I don't want to stumble over my words on the show here, trying to figure out what it was that my wife said that made sense, and I'm always that like, yeah, but, and I can never put it to words, so I would just stumble over it trying to explain my confusion with it. But it was a verifiable confusion that's not quite solid yet.
Let me put it like this: somebody was complaining about the end of the movie, saying that the Captain America stuff doesn't work. And it does. It makes complete sense within the context of time travel as established in the movie. He's not in their timeline. He left their timeline. He went and started a brand new timeline in which he was with Peggy Carter.
Yeah.
He returned to this timeline at the end to give the shield over to Bucky.
Yep.
That's what happened. So it wasn't him living in this timeline. Because they were asking the question, well, why didn't he go through and fix everything from where he was? If he went back and lived for 50 years, why didn't he go back and fix everything? And that way everything was saved. Because it was a different timeline he was in. He was living in an alternate universe, not the same timeline.
Yeah, and that's part of what we drew. It's like, here's the one strand of time that the Ancient One explains to us. Okay, there is no messing up the main timeline. You can only have loops. And I was thinking of it like shoelaces. Shoelace from end to end or whatever. Well, that doesn't mean that you can't put a loop into that shoelace. Okay, like an alternate timeline. That worked for me. It has more to do with, okay, he needed to close all these put the stones back so that all of these alternate timelines didn't branch out into like 1,000 different things, okay? And that just stops them right there. But with him going off and having his own alternate timeline, does that do anything? Because they were concerned about making sure that
only
all
in
of
the
those
time
other
that he
branches...
only in the timeline that he's in.
Okay. The good... This opens up a lot of desire to see the film again.
It created a brand new branch that is a new timeline that didn't exist before.
Sure.
And it's just an alternate to various other timelines.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how that relates to them talking about needing to close off those other timelines. Loki doing his disappearing act when they go back in 2012 and they need to grab the scepter and the Tesseract and whatnot. He disappears with the Tesseract. And I'm like, that opens a whole new timeline right there. How do they close that off? Well, okay, Steve would have brought back the Tesseract and put it where it needed to be before that ever happened to Loki. Okay, so that halts that right there. It puts a solder cap on the end of that timeline. Not a problem. But then I know that there's a Loki series coming up, and I was thinking to myself, how... Wait a minute, why?
Because what Loki did created another alternate timeline. So Loki's now off in a different timeline.
Okay, see,
there's a different 2012 that he's in now that is branching off into something else.
According to the film's rules in my brain, then that alternate timeline, though, was soldered off by Captain America returning the stone.
He returned it to 1970. He didn't return it to 2012.
He did. You're right about that. Oh, man. Uh-oh, I'm having a brain fart again.
Yeah, he took it back to 1970 where Howard Stark was.
It's either a brain fart or a stroke. It's one of the two.
I did enjoy this scene where they were basically tearing apart all the time travel movies and saying, this isn't real, this doesn't work.
Hot Tub Time Machine. That was a great one. Hot Tub Time Machine 2.
You mean Back to the Future is bullshit? And it made me think of our time travel episode. And in a way, I kind of could picture Josh, fidgeting in his seat, not happy with this conversation going on in the movie.
Oh, you better believe it.
It reminded me, though, did they make the same kind of... they had the same discussion in Star Trek, did they not? After the first new Star Trek movie, they had the same conversation.
Yes, it's the same type of time travel device where you've open up an entire alternate reality. And that can work for comics, especially in the way that comics are created. There's no one timeline. You can't start at volume 1, issue 1 of Spider-Man in the 60s and then just come up to this point where there's branches all over the place. There's literally alternate dimensions and everything like that. So what this movie does, even though it's supposed to be a wrap-up, it really does start the possibility of future things in Marvel, be it Secret Wars or Captain Marvel and the Kree. No matter which way you look at it, there's a lot that they can do going forward, and this really does, to me, spring forward, even though technically Phase 3 ends with Far From Home, according to Kevin Feige this week.
Now, I don't remember Infinity War. Was Nebula there when he killed Gamora, or did she just find out about it?
She just found out about it because when he came back to Titan and they had him, Nebula was talking about, how did you get the Soul Stone? How did you get it? And then she realized, oh, you had to have done something with Gamora.
But she may not have known the extent.
Yeah, and Mantis was touching his. He says he's in extraordinary pain.
Yeah, she said she basically said that he killed her.
Well, right
there in Infinity War.
But it could have explained why she doesn't know exactly that you had to kill someone to get the stone. He just knows that she did, or Thanos did.
And there's a small paradox involving Nebula too. Her future self, the 2023 self, if you want to take the timeline 5 years ahead like the movie talks about, Nebula's future self kills her past self, which in theory we've been taught before is a problem.
But again, it's an alternate timeline.
Because the past is the future.
Right.
Past is the future. I'm a reasonably intelligent dude, and I love this stuff, but man, sometimes the way that it gets twisted around, I'm just like... it's a lot of work.
Her going into the future is a whole other timeline, you see. And then her coming back and her past self coming into this timeline changed and created that version of her that came from the past to the future has her own timeline that's going in a different direction.
You were really close with your predictions on this movie, by the way. Pretty damn close. But speaking of...
Did I not
of
predict
that,
Black Widow? Thank you very much.
You did.
Black Widow's dead, everybody.
And so how does she have her...
It's a prequel.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it works because she looks young and
Although
everything
she is
like
alive
that.
in an alternate timeline, I bet.
Probably.
I mean, that's the thing, is it would really get annoying if they start going timeline crazy with this.
Yeah.
I know the speaking of the passing of Iron Man, Tony Stark, that funeral at the end is interesting because we see some faces that we hadn't seen quite yet in this movie, including the boy from Iron Man 3. I thought that was kind of a interesting addition, focusing on him on the camera. I had to think about it for a minute, like, what is this kid? He looks familiar, but...
He's grown up a lot.
You know, my son and I had a bet with Infinity War. Which character do you think is going to show up out of nowhere from any of the Marvel movies? And I got it right last year with Red Skull. It was completely out of nowhere. I was really happy that I got that. And so we did it again. And he was saying Valkyrie, which I'm like, well, okay, sure, but she's on the posters. That doesn't work for me, but okay. And I said Betty Ross. I was thinking that they would go all the way back and try and give Hulk something to latch onto from his past. And, you know, there's this massive battle going on, and half the people in the world are snapped. We don't hear a lot about who they might be missing, per se. It's just assumed they only miss their heroes, or Hawkeye misses his family. If Hulk would have said, like, you know, I wish I could have talked to Betty one last time before she got snapped, Marvel could have written that character out, you know, or General Ross should be there, right, in theory.
But he was there.
I did not see him,
yeah,
I'm
William
sorry.
Hurt, yeah, he was there.
I saw him in Infinity War, but I didn't realize
he was at the funeral, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I must have missed that. I'm glad that they put him in there. But I was wrong on the Betty Ross thing.
I was wondering about. Somebody was telling me that that Natalie Portman's appearance was a cut scene from Thor, as opposed to actually been filmed for this.
In fact, that's exactly what I said after I got out of the theater. I said, no way was Natalie Portman in that movie. That's a cut scene from the Dark World. They don't even have Thor interacting with her. They put her in the credits and whatnot, and that's fine. But we know that Natalie Portman hasn't wanted to do these movies since Thor the Dark World, so they've had to come up with little excuses. Which, you know,
she was at the premiere. What's her problem?
I don't know. I really don't.
She's
where's
vegan.
For that matter, this movie doesn't answer the question, where's Sif? You know, nobody gives a shit who Sif is, I'm sure, but the Warriors 3 from the first two Thor movies were dispatched instantly in Ragnarok, and there's no Sif anywhere.
I think Captain Marvel answers that question in a way in that she says it's a very big universe. She could be in many different places and probably has the inability to travel. So I would say it's reasonable to think that she could be somewhere in the universe.
That does make a lot of sense. And I suppose in terms of setting up a new Asgard, they want to focus on Valkyrie's character more instead of Sif. Bringing her in would cause a bit of an imbalance with what they're doing with the new Asgard situation. Okay, I get that. It's from the comics perspective, Sif is like Thor's number 2 squeeze. You know, they have the will they won't they thing, and we haven't seen her in a long time.
They should have had a scene where like Edward Norton and Terrence Howard were having coffee or something like that in the background. Yeah, I was a little underwhelmed with Captain Marvel in this. I thought, you know, she could have been there for the main mission. I know there's a lot going on in the universe, but this is the main thing happening in the universe. And if she's everything they said she is, which she didn't look at the end, which is kind of weird. I don't know. I just thought she was poorly used.
In terms of what they've established for her, and that she's incredibly powerful, and that if Nick Fury can use a pager in 1995, all the way up to the last film to reach her, they've got to figure out another way to reach her that is a little quicker. You know, like, hey, we need you for this. screw helping like the people in the aftermath. We could probably fix the whole thing if you were with us now. It would be nitpicking to say things like that. There's 1,000 different things that I can nitpick about this, and I certainly don't want to discredit the accomplishment that they've made, that they've had in order to get this even off the ground, to have this kind of moment in theaters. Oh, yeah. It's like Nirvana. Nerdvana. Oh, I should have just put them together again.
Because no one's ever thought of that before.
Whenever I think of something, I'm hoping that no one's ever thought of it, but it's always late to the game.
I loved what they did with Captain Marvel. Honestly, I loved her, especially her arrival in the battle. I thought that was awesome. With the machine, they stop shooting at the guys on the ground because they see her coming and they start trying to shoot at her, and she just flies right through that ship. That was badass.
I mean, that was cool. It just. There's no reason she wouldn't have been there earlier. And
sure, there is. She gave plenty of reason.
No,
why.
She
did.
No, she didn't.
She did. The universe is vast, and there's a lot of people who need a lot of help.
The main thing for the universe was happening right now, and she pops up in the battle, but not there for this before. I mean, and then if you can't get a hold of her, why is she there for the battle? There's a lot of issues with the Captain Marvel's part. Plus, I mean, the further I get away from the movie Captain Marvel, the less I like it as well. I just kind of feel like they dropped the ball on her a little bit. And with her kind of being the future of the franchise.
But as fantastically talented as she is, I'm not as interested in the character as I hoped that I would. Hopefully they'll be able to develop her later. After all, it was an origin story in essence for Captain Marvel. So, yeah, maybe she'll be in there more going forward. I'm excited about what they're going to do going forward. My favorite parts of the movie... Of the two favorite parts, one being Captain being able to wield Mjolnir. That was really good stuff right there. But at the end, Cap's arc is I think is the best way that they finished a character. To me, I just am slightly in disagreement with Iron Man. It lingered a little too long for me.
I loved that.
That's all I kept thinking of in that moment was Robert Downey Jr.'s ego. I don't know why that came into my head, but since it was a little longer, you know, and they have like a brief little scene where they rue Black Widow, but she's just as important as Tony, right? But she's not, and so it seems like they're servicing Robert Downey Jr. more than they needed to. I'm adding something to that.
The whole thing started with him and Iron Man, and everybody knew. I mean, that's the one thing you could have predicted is Iron Man's not coming out of this movie. How do you do this and make it work? And by actually bringing you to tears over it, you know, having the whole Spider-Man thing and then having, you know, Pepper Potts come in there and do her whole thing, I thought that was just really well done. And I thought it made it that much more uncomfortable. And I just thought it was really effective because you had to... Otherwise, I mean, we all knew it was going to happen. So I was just kind of impressed with the way they made it work.
And especially, I like what they've done with his entire arc. You know, he's had such an amazing arc since the very beginning to now. And I thought they really capped that very, very well with that scene. And it wasn't like he was milking it. He didn't say a word. It was Pepper and it was Spider-Man, and they really brought a lot of emotion to that. But even before that, when Spider-Man comes back, and how much growth is it that Tony, you know, really just embraces the kid in that moment? That was a lot for him.
Yeah.
Of course. I think that it's how they presented it is fine. Like, his death is sensible. In fact, he's the one to make it happen. That matters. It has everything to do with the actual death scene lingering, and you know what? It's just a preference. I'm thinking of Batman, Superman, how they lingered a little too long on Superman, for example. Come on now, let's just tie it up, you know, make it a little bit more believable, make the emotion a bit more palpable. I just saw it a different way. About the Cap ending moment, I've been looking forward to seeing what this cinematic universe would like to do with Captain America going forward, be it Bucky that would inherit the shield, be it Falcon that would. And for Falcon to get that over Bucky, who we would assume would have been the natural inheritor, that tells us that Winter Soldier's got more of an arc. He needs to get somewhere else in his life before he can take on that kind of responsibility. But Falcon's there, and I like this character. When he debuted in Winter Soldier, I thought that was going to be a really great addition, and they haven't utilized him a whole lot. I know he doesn't have superpowers, but I just think that Sam Wilson deserves a bit more. And for him to get that, to be the one to, in essence, hold the Earth-based Mjolnir in the shield, I think that's really fantastic. But one more thing about Iron Man here. You guys will have to help me understand this one. We kind of took the side, at least collectively as a show. The majority believed in Captain America's side in Civil War, and that, like, hey, listen, they're here to help. There's going to be some collateral damage when you have to go up against a large thing crashing down on the Earth, like in Age of Ultron and whatnot. Okay, Robert Downey Jr. kept saying, like, I needed to build something around the world to protect it. We need to be regulated, et cetera, et cetera. None of that made a lot of sense to me. And in this movie, they give him the floor by saying, I tried to do this, Cap, blah, blah, blah. And how does the movie get off all of a sudden making Robert Downey Jr. the correct one here? His program didn't work in Age of Ultron that he was trying to do, and he was doing the whole Jeff Goldblum Jurassic Park thing. He didn't think about the results of it. He just decided to do it, and he was careless, and Bruce Banner told him that. In this movie, they've eschewed that entire thing and basically said, Cap, you were wrong a long time ago. You need to start believing in what I'm doing again. I thought that was cheap because I've believed in Cap the whole time.
I will argue that they weren't saying he was wrong. They were just showing him. I mean, he had been sitting out there for however long. He was weak. He was tired. He was not all there together. He was frustrated. And
yes.
They just showed Iron Man with a short temper, kind of losing it in the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think it's them saying that he was right.
And I certainly don't think that was the movie's perspective that he was right. It was him being self-righteous.
Okay. That would help me a little bit more on that one. I just felt that it was what we were taking from Civil War, no matter which side you
angry,
fell on.
I told you so sort of thing.
Okay.
That's how I watched it anyway. I really think the acting is what kind of made the predictability work so well. I mean, everybody had a scene where they, I don't want to call it chewed the scenery because I didn't really ever find it annoying, but everybody had that powerful scene. Scarlett Johansson had a couple of them. Robert Downey Jr. had some of them. With the exception of Chris Hemsworth, everybody had that scene where they were, it was really pretty.
Come on, Chris Hemsworth with Thor and his mom was a great scene.
I forgot about that scene. You're correct. Well, hold on. Of all the great scenes, it was the worst, but it was the best Thor scene as well, though.
That was really good. Rene Russo was really great.
Yeah, the whole thing with Thor was like he was in the parody of this movie while everybody else was in this movie, and that it was just a one-note joke that kept repeating. And I know once you're fat, you can't just lose it like that, but I don't know.
The way I looked at Thor's arc here is that he's lost everything, right? And the one last bit of hope that he held on to was dashed when they went to see Thanos, and he took that out. I mean, I loved that moment. Scene. I have been waiting for that moment for a year, and he finally does, and he just starts to walk off, and it's like, there's nothing that I can do. I mean, he feels a little lost. He doesn't know who he is anymore, and throughout the film, he's starting to gain just a little bit more of that. So, for a guy that's lost pretty much everything, his break at the end seems needed. He's going to take some time for himself. Unfortunately, it did turn into a bit of a parody. Maybe one too many scenes where we're like, oh, look, you like beer. Well, fuck you, Marvel, so do I.
But to your point, he lost everything. He's got nothing left. He is the comedy. He is the go-to comedy for the rest of the movie. Bring it down a little bit. Be a little darker. I don't know. You already have Paul Rudd and Robert Downey Jr. to make you laugh. And I mean, it worked, and they, I guess, are putting him with the Guardians now, which does make me more excited about Guardians. Because I do like Chris Hemsworth. My whole complaint about Thor Ragnarok was, as a standalone movie, I think it's amazing. It doesn't fit in the universe for me. And so But I think he's funny. I like him in other things. I don't know. The consistency does eat at me a little bit here and there, with his character at least.
Mm-hmm. Has Thor become irredeemably comic relief?
That's a good question. And the longer he sticks around the Guardians, I think that the comedy's going to be there. That's what we would expect. But I don't know. It seems to me like he's more of a wild card now. Not necessarily only for comic purposes, but you can insert him anywhere now that he might be needed, be it with the Guardians, or if they end up doing some of the projects that they've talked about. They talked about a Thor and Rocket movie on their own. It hasn't been greenlit or anything like that, but I could see that happening. The Eternals that's coming out. Why would a god not be a part of that somehow? He can fit himself into anywhere Marvel-wise that they want to do, but I don't think that he's needed only for comic purposes now. He will, but...
He raised people are talking about online how they felt that he was being insulted throughout the movie, and by extension, they were being insulted by that. Making the overweight, depressed guy the butt of the joke. I didn't feel that way. I didn't sense him being the butt of the joke. I especially thought that in the main scene that where he is being kind of comic and over the top, I thought Bruce was at the very least very sensitive and understanding of him in that moment. I thought that was really kind of lovely, and Rocket was really just being Rocket. He was just being true to the characters. I don't necessarily feel that was the movie putting him down.
I don't think so either. I am a little confused. Thor's metabolism is in question here.
See, this
those
is a question.
Huge buffets in Thor, and he's still ripped to the nines.
This raised a weird question to me, because I always thought, like with Asgard, I thought it was some kind of like magical DNA thing where you just ate whatever you want and drank whatever you want, and you still ended up looking like him. Because there's not like a Gold's Gym on Asgard,
Sure.
And he's not sitting there eating chicken breasts and salad every day. He's
right.
So I was wondering, that kind of like exposed the story for. There is a tendency towards shallowness in characterization, a lack of detail in overall characterization, and that goes throughout each of the characters in each of the movies. You learn about aspects of their personality, but do you really know these characters in a very intimate way? And you really can't know any of these characters, and there's too many of them to know them in a truly intimate way to get any kind of drill down into the details of who they are.
I mean, I guess I would say, in defense of Thor's body, I mean, you can do body weight stuff. CrossFit's all body weight. I'm sure they have a CrossFit on Asgard. Loki's not particularly big, so I don't know. And then, you could make the argument that you come to Earth, and that's how shitty our food is and our diets are, that it does that to you. I don't know.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense, that the only thing you can source are like triglycerides and everything, and he's used to fresh organic stuff on Asgard.
Yeah, but there were plenty of carbs on Asgard, weren't there?
Natural.
Well, plenty of meat at least. Yes.
Natural carbs, though. Not processed. They don't got factories where they're...
What is the inner life of an Asgardian?
Asgardian metabolism 101.
What do they do all day?
What about Rocket? What did you guys think of the Rocket? I thought Rocket was pretty awesome in this.
Yeah, there's lots of, again, continuing on from Guardians 2 into this, is just so much more character growth from him, and him being a little bit vulnerable and talking about these people as his family for the first time. I mean, he's done it a little bit before, but being honest about that. I loved the scene with him and Thor when they're on Asgard, and he's talking about, I got something to lose. Thor's got nothing to lose. I got stuff to lose. I thought that was really great.
Yeah.
About the Infinity Gauntlet itself, the first one, was forged in the heart of a dying star and is fashioned to hold the power of all of these Infinity Stones, and as an individual, you had to have your own strengths in order to even wield it. But this material was molten from a particular celestial thing. But the Avengers can figure it out in a lab on Earth to wield these Infinity Stones in an Iron Man gauntlet.
But again, Thanos doesn't know what vibranium is.
Are we saying that it was vibranium?
I'm assuming it was vibranium, yeah. Why wouldn't they use vibranium, the most powerful element in the world?
That's a really good question. I was under the impression that the Avengers didn't have it to wield as a everyday thing. Only Cap's shield was, and then the rest of the vibranium was in Wakanda. I mean, if that's not the case,
they had access to Wakanda. They can go to Wakanda, or Wakanda can come to them.
And at one point, Iron Man does make another shield.
Yeah, he does make. Yeah,
exactly.
He's got his own store, I'm sure.
He says he makes so he makes another shield. That's what that scene was about, is him giving him another one. Yeah. I was under the impression that was giving him the original back. Do we remember in Iron Man 1 or 2 or something like that, he uses the shield to kind of balance his whole thing? It was in Iron Man 2, yeah, to create this new arc reactor.
Right, but he'd given it to him he gave it to him in Civil War, and then it got badly damaged in Civil War.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so it is a new one.
Made a new
All right,
one.
We can assume then that answers my entire question with the gauntlet.
Plus, Black Panther was part of the Avengers.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and Okoye was still on the team, so she would have obviously given them access to vibranium if they needed it.
Excellent.
What did you think of the 10-second female fight?
Missing the one most important female in the entire franchise.
She was already dead.
Right, but
talking about Black Widow, right?
Yeah, it's
she was already dead. They couldn't include her.
Of course, but oh man,
well,
like you finally get them all together. I don't know. It's cool, but it's like, here, look at us. This is the group of females. We did it for you guys, right? It lasted 30 seconds, but we did it for you. Less organic than perhaps it should have been.
And Sean and I were talking about this beforehand, and I agree. At the same time, I think we almost maybe need to have these things for it to happen for us not to notice it. You have to do a couple where it's so painfully in your face that after a while you just get used to it.
Because I mean, you've seen guys team up in this way a million times.
It is awkward that it's just like the random females from every group just happen to be over here at the same time. But again, that doesn't matter. That's how you do progress, I guess.
It was nice to see Pepper take on the mantra of rescue finally. That's a character that I learned through a Lego superheroes game. I'm like, what's rescue? It's a really cool suit. And
I didn't get what was going on at first.
The helmet that he shares with Morgan is the rescue helmet, and I looked at my son, and he's like, "It's rescue!" So he's way ahead of me, by the way. And we had he had a friend that went to the same showing and wanted to sit with him, and that friend is a yipper, and I had to shh, whisper, and then
just punch him.
Or don't talk at all.
Yeah, it didn't work. And in the moments of emotion, in theory, right, where I was trying to take it all in, it was hard to, because you have a bawling kid to the right of me. Not my boy, but the other one. I'm like, how do I deal with this?
In fairness, I saw it in 3D and my glasses were smudged and I couldn't get them clean. So there was like in my left eye at the very bottom, there was just something irritating me the entire time. There actually, my son started with him, and then he was bothering him too much, so I just took him to shut him up. But when Iron Man dies, because like I said, you could hear people weeping out loud. It was kind of, I guess, cool. I guess it depends on the mood you're in when you're seeing it.
Yeah.
But my son looks at me and goes, "Are you crying?" And I just kind of didn't really answer him. But later on in the car, I asked him if he cried, and he was like, "No." And I was like, trying to get him to admit he cried, so I said something along the lines of, "Well, if you didn't cry at that, you're probably going to grow up and kill somebody someday." Just a throwaway goof around. He sat on that for the rest of the day and then went to his mom and was just like, "Dad thinks I'm going to kill somebody." And it was really eating at him the whole time. And I was like, I just wanted you to admit you cried. It turns out the reason he didn't cry is he didn't think Iron Man was all the way dead. He thought he'd come back.
Okay.
took him a while to figure that out. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gosh, I mean, I guess in terms of emotion, I thought for me, like Ant-Man and his daughter actually was the one that hit me harder than the most. I love the 5-year difference, and I thought again, Rudd was just amazing in this movie. Every moment he seemed to be on a slightly different wavelength from everybody, but was just the right one for Ant-Man. And it just his energy is so much different than everybody else's, and it really made the movie for me. Just having him playing this at such a unique level.
Yeah, I don't know really what to say more. I mean, I guess he had 5 hours instead of 5 years go by. I guess they kind of kept the biggest stars and put them in this movie as kind of the main characters, I suppose. But I mean, it worked. I don't really have an issue with it. I don't love Ant-Man, but I like Paul Rudd, so it worked. I don't know.
So Hawkeye, I know you guys were really looking forward to that character, and he starts out the movie and everything like that, and that's kind of neat. I don't know what there is for the character to do now that his family is back. Like it was nice to see him. It was nice to see a progression. It was nice to see an actual conflict and have him be there or whatnot. But what is he going to stay with them? He's got his family again now, so it seems to me like they gave him something to do, but he's right back in the place where he was before the movie started, and just being at home, being away from the whole thing, and so it doesn't seem like he's really attached anymore, and that's almost unfortunate, especially I know that there's going to be a show coming out next year.
Well, I'm assuming a time jump to that show, and probably his daughter kind of branching off and becoming a hero of her own, and him trying to train her and keep her safe at the same time will kind of be the arc of that show. That
would make sense. You know, I don't know anything about his family going forward in the comics. I do know that there's a character called Kate Bishop that eventually takes up the mantra of Hawkeye as well, and she's rumored to be in the show. We don't know anything about that character in the MCU quite yet. I would be cool with either way. But I
just thought it was rather pointed, though, you know, showing her working with the bow and arrow. It seems kind of like a setup of something.
It doesn't sound like they're going to do it, but they could have done that 5 years while he's alone. That could be the show, or at least a season of the show, if they wanted to.
Oh, yeah, if they just had his transition to Ronin and his duties as Ronin. Yeah. The guy that he fights in Tokyo for that brief moment, you'll recognize the actor. He's been in a number of things, including 47 Ronin and The Wolverine, which he played a mafia boss type of guy in The Wolverine. And for the slightest of moments, I said to myself, wait a minute, hold on a second. What happened to his character in The Wolverine? Are they somehow trying to link the Fox movies to this through like a timeline? Nah, they aren't. But
that would have been amazing. All of a sudden, Hugh Jackman pops up in that fight.
I leaned over and told my son, that dude was in The Wolverine. Hold your horses.
If that would have happened, I'd have been like, we're leaving. Let's go. Now, if Deadpool popped up, I don't know.
That would have been cool.
I mean, in a lot of ways, you know, at some point you can be like, this is really Hawkeye's movie, or this is Black Widow's movie, or this is Captain America. And in a lot of ways, it's all of their movies at times, and which is why I also think you can't. I don't think it's gonna. I don't know. It's like it's kind of like the last Lord of the Ring movie. It's really all of them kind of as one. You need those other movies for this to exist, and it'll never for me be like this amazing movie. It's just kind of, it was a neat experience. Door is closed. I can move on from the comic book world, and that's it.
Until Spider-Man comes out.
I will say that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse really fucked with my head watching this, because I kept thinking Miles Morales, and I'm like, oh no, that's the other one. That might be the best of all these, the more I think about that one.
There's a case to be made for that, and I was more emotionally invested in that movie than this one. One of the neat parts of them going back and experiencing other movies is, expected as that might be, did remind me how much I loved the Winter Soldier movie and the elevator scene. That's great stuff. And it makes me want to go watch that. That is still, of all of these movies, my favorite of the cinematic universe, because it's more of a movie first that happens to have superheroes in it, and this one was a superhero movie that is less of a movie and more of an event. Yeah, it's definitely an event. It really is just kind of a transition movie, 3-hour transition, where you're moving certain stories forward, you're closing up some. As a movie itself, I don't know, it's just a season finale. It's a season finale.
I think for me, for the best of all these movies, for all the 22, is Guardians 2. I think that one has the best characters, it has the best story arc, it has the best sense of humor, some of the best, just character work in general. The emotion is definitely there throughout that one. That, for me, is the best one.
It's the most fun, for sure. And that's why, because I think, didn't Black Panther come out that year and Wonder Woman and...
2017 is Guardians and Spider-Man Homecoming and Thor Ragnarok.
Okay, Thor was the one. And everybody was like, Thor is the best, Thor Ragnarok's the best. And I'm like, no, the funniest one was Guardians 2. And everybody's talking about Thor. You're wrong.
It took me a while, too, to get to Guardians 2, because as much I love Black Panther, to be my number 2 would be Black Panther, and I love Black Panther, but I've actually watched Guardians 2 and gone back to it, and Lindsay Ellis is a woman on YouTube, did an amazing video essay on it that really kind of puts it in a different perspective and definitely turned me around on it in a way I didn't expect.
I'm partial to the Iron Man movies. I mean, that's especially the first one. And I like 3, but 3, similar to the Captain America Winter Soldier, is like its own little, it's like a Shane Black movie. I mean, it is a Shane Black movie. But it's basically Kiss Kiss Bang Bang in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, and
so it doesn't really fit in.
Honestly, the when you mention Shane Black and you mention when you look back at these movies with the different perspectives of directors, I think that might be part of what's kind of holding you back on this, Josh, is the various different visions of these characters. And while the Russos do a fine job of bringing it all together, they don't have they don't have the same way of bringing Black Panther here or Guardians here. Like, they screwed up the Guardians so badly in Infinity War, or the vision that Favreau brought to Iron Man, and then Shane Black brought to Iron Man, and they all have these different ways, and the people who it can seem like it's all kind of disparate and not the same vision. Whereas you look at something like Star Wars, where you, at least in the first 3, even though he didn't direct them all, you had Lucas's vision throughout.
Yeah.
And with Lord of the Rings, obviously, you have nothing but Peter Jackson's vision. That type of thing does make a big difference in terms of how the movie flows, and especially how it flows over a period of movies.
Especially when, like, Robert Downey Jr. multiple times throughout this whole time, this is my last movie, this is my last movie. So you have to write up that possibility in every single movie that he's been in.
It reminds me of how the Harry Potter franchise went. Alfonso Cuarón is the height of filmmaking, in theory, with Prisoner of Azkaban, and that is like a complete... You can lift that one out of the whole series as being unique in how it looks and how it's filmed and whatnot. The Russo brothers did Winter Soldier, but that was their first feature film. So they've got a little bit more like... and much fewer characters, kind of isolated areas that they're dealing with here. And then they became the David Yates in a way. It's fine, but you need somebody to corral everything, not so much as offer an artistic vision to that. And the Russos, for as much as I love Winter Soldier, it really is an homage piece that's kind of like 3 Days of the Condor and all of the 70s government, don't trust who you're working for type of thing that we've seen before. So there isn't really a voice in the entire thing except maybe Ryan Coogler. And that one is so brash and bold and brave in a lot of spots. That kind of style and swagger that movie had, we haven't seen that out of Black Panther in the 2 times we've seen him since then. I kind of want him to be the main force going forward, because that's the one that's a film, and I happen to have superheroes in it. I watched a good portion of Black Panther earlier this past week to refamiliarize myself, and that one's got more of a singular voice. I disagree with you on that one. I happen to think that Coogler's saying something a bit more.
I think he's saying more, but it's still very superhero-y in it. I mean, there's definitely a good message, and I love the message, but
you can sense the vision of a director.
Oh yeah,
whereas he can't in other movies with other directors who are more like let's see, it's the conversation we've always had about the auteur versus the carpenter, and the Russos do fall more into that carpenter aspect. There's not really a visionary perspective there.
But I don't know who you could have put in charge of it to make it necessarily better. Some things are out of your control in a movie like this. Yeah, you could put Coogler in this, and I don't know that he would be any better necessarily. He's a better filmmaker, but you still have things that you can't that are out of your. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but it's just out of your control. This is something more for our Russos or a Favreau or Joss Whedon or even J.J. Abrams, something like that. Those guys are the type of people that could do something like this when not. Because all you really are, you're just crowding everything together. There's not a whole lot you can do with it because you still have to honor the stories before it, and it's, I don't know.
Well, the Russos came from TV, and their work on Arrested Development is dealing with a lot of different characters and how to make the story work around the characters that they're developing. So I can understand, why they would want somebody that's fluid with working in development like that.
They did a good job of all these, without everybody popping up without it really being distracting. I never really was like, there's Robert Redford, I'm out of the movie. It was, I thought they did a pretty good job of that.
I wish more Nick Fury would have been, I wish he'd have been in more of this and had been in Infinity War for that matter. There's all this stuff going around, and the guy that really is in charge of this even happening is...
I think you would have been in the way. I especially think you would have gotten in the way of Black Widow's development in her performance because she becomes the leader for a time. And,
that's true.
And corralling things together, and I think that was a really good place for her to be.
And he had established in Age of Ultron that he was stepping back and S.H.I.E.L.D. was gone and he was going to be out on his own and a bit rogue. You're right about that. That comes around.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would have liked more Captain Marvel. Just, we had the movie come before this. I was expecting more, and it just seemed like not enough. And I understand they explained it. I just didn't buy enough of it. Any thoughts on Avengers Endgame before we move on?
It's a hell of an accomplishment that somehow maybe I've just got first world problems. That it spoiled me to the point, spoiled with adequacy, and spoiled with, gosh, I don't want to say mediocrity because that's not what this is. It's just,
it doesn't feel like a movie. I mean, that's kind of.
And, we went to event movies when we were younger. Like Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, Star Wars, they were events. Everyone packed and lined the theater. I was amazed to have been the first one in line, by the way, for the showing on the Illinois side. Amazed that no one else was there.
You got there on Tuesday.
Which would have been totally pointless. I mean, I thought that 2.5 hours before showtime was a bad idea. Like, I should have shown up earlier. As it turns out, absolutely not. So, yeah, it's an event movie, but kind of lost a bit of its luster,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of its own unique event movie. I mean, it's not Back to the Future. I mean, I don't know. It just, at different times there's different leads. It really is more like just an event transition, I guess. I don't know.
A season finale.
Yeah. Season finale, not a series. Season finale, Michael Scott's not coming back. Now John Krasinski's in charge or whatever. I don't know. That's how I felt about it. Anything else before we move on?
I think we officially, on the show, you guys got Iron Man 3 in May of 2013, but I was not here for that one. So everything Thor the Dark World on, I was a part of. So like the first 4 movies in this cinematic universe prior to us 3 working together. But we've worked on 18, 19 of these movies now, just poring over them and rearranging our favorites list and you getting slowly and slowly more annoyed.
I say that, but then, Black Panther was phenomenal, so, it does bring you back in.
Yeah. It's marked the time well in the past 5-6 years to really have our show have all of the tent poles really be the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized Undisputed Classic.
The Crow.
The Crow is, of course, 1994.
Yeah.
And who's the director here?
Alex Proyas.
Alex Proyas, thank you. I was going to call him Perez for some reason. Alex Proyas. This is a hell of a movie, and I think it doesn't get the credit that it deserves because Brandon Lee died and didn't get to carry this on any further. Not that I don't think the movie ended kind of in a way that maybe he shouldn't carry it forward, but just the fact that he could have been, his legacy could have lifted this movie if he'd given an opportunity to go on and make more movies and become a gigantic movie star, which I think he might have done based off of just how charismatic and exciting as he is in this movie. There's an edge where you could definitely see where maybe Heath Ledger watched The Crow before he did the Joker in Batman, because there's a little elements there, the opposite way. Obviously he's a villain, but I mean, he takes a little bit of the darkness and the weirdness from The Crow a little bit. The character, of course, is Eric Draven. He's murdered on Halloween night, or the night before his wedding, and thrown out of a window. His wife, would-be wife, is raped and murdered, and a year later he comes back from the dead with the help of a crow, who it is essentially a stand-in for his very soul. He's going to go around murdering the people who murdered him and his wife and take revenge. And it's really strong violence, really strong comic book imagery, achingly 90s soundtrack, like just painfully 90s soundtrack. And when it goes into Stone Temple Pilots and then it transitions into like lesser known but obviously very 90s bands, it's like, whoa, I'm in high school all over again right now. And that's not a bad thing. But it definitely sets this movie in a very specific time. But I really enjoyed it, and I think Brandon Lee, it's just such a sad, tragic thing. He would have been a gigantic movie star.
Let's take the Crow as a comic series or a graphic novel series, whatever the case may be, and if you were to wring it out, if it was wet and you wrung it out, it would be like screaming as it left the page. It's so wrought with emotion from page beginning to page end. It's black and white. The stark contrast of Eric Draven's like clown face against the gothic imagery of this Detroit town that doesn't exist, really. It's Detroit. They say Motor City.
It's
but
Detroit now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't notice anybody drinking water. But this, of all of the movies that have been adapted from comics, this one to me looks the most like what a comic book looks like. And watching some of the special features on top of seeing the movie, I listened to James O'Barr, the creator of the author, talk about how Alex Proyas washed the film with black so that he would drain out all of the color. Nowadays, we would say that film can't survive because we want bright, fun, positive images, blah, 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 blah. Things are too dark, Zack Snyder, blah, 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 blah. And there's no color in this one like at all. And if there is, it's in important moments that serve a purpose. From the beginning of this film to the end, it identifies me with age 15 like no other film. This came out May 13th, 1994, the day before I turned 15. I saw it in September after having been around a summer camp where a bunch of people were getting me into music that I hadn't heard of before. There was Smashing Pumpkins. There was, the Reality Bites soundtrack was getting thrown around. And this is stuff that I hadn't heard. I'm Mr. Pop Radio up until this point. And the seeds were sown with this movie, with this soundtrack, into a completely different way of looking at things. Now, you're saying painfully 90s soundtrack. It's definitely 90s, yes, but oh, do I love it. The sounds of, the rolling sounds of Dead Souls as the crow flies over the rooftops. My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult even is a wonderful little addition to this movie, and how ridiculous the lyrics are, but how like charged it is. I love Big Empty in this one too. That's my favorite Stone Temple Pilots song. I'm sure that that's maybe the most obvious choice, but I love how it fits with this. I love how they bring in like people that I had never heard of before, like Jane Siberry and whatever that band is called Medicine that's performing towards the end of the movie. I looked at that woman and I'm like, I've never seen anybody dress like that ever before. The lead singer in the whole movie, I'd never seen anybody act this way before. The mean people were really mean. Like, top dollar, Michael Wincott is a bastard in this movie. It's really the first villain that I saw in a movie that was that like awful. Like he's cool because he's a good villain, right? But he's so dark and his voice is so grovelly. I love this Michael Wincott performance. He's one of my favorite like actors that you know nothing about outside of Robin Hood or this movie. But really, this is like a big ball of emotion. I mean, if you try not to take it too seriously, if you do take it too seriously, I think the film's going to be ruined for you. If you put yourself back in the mindset of an angsty teenager whose emotions can be up one moment and down the next moment, right, then this film really works. And it was my favorite film for a number of years after age 15. I just identified with it a whole lot then. Now as an adult, what I got out of it was how beautiful the movie is, how beautiful the score by Graham Revell is, how wonderful the soundtrack pulls me back to that very moment every single time, no matter when I listen to it. And Brandon Lee's performance is, guy, you know what? He's not a great actor, but he's a little awkward in these scenes, but it works. It's a kind of awkward that in action films, like if Dolph Lundgren had done something, like we would say, he doesn't know how to act. Look at him awkwardly do these scenes. But there's something about his awkwardness here that works because he's just a dude. He's just an every dude that was in a rock band that got murdered, and now he's trying to avenge everything. He's not going to be like Superman. He's not going to even be like Batman. He's a little awkward. But I love The Crow. It's one of my top 50 favorite movies, if not top 100. I forgot to look at its specific spot in the hierarchy. And I'm glad that we had to watch it this week, finally, to bring it to the show, because I wish more people would see it. Now, it didn't go well showing it to my wife. I lost her about 40 minutes in. As expected, it's not her type of thing. Lots of, not like bloody gore, but just like very meaningful violence that doesn't always hook her. For me, the violence is necessary. I need to see Tintin have all those knives in him. I need to see Fun Boy getting injected with all those needles. Like, yeah, they fucking deserved it, man. The things that these guys say, I wanted like head chopping off, It's very satisfying as a revenge film. Bob.
I don't get it. I mean, he's a cool character. It's super campy. I just, maybe I'm looking at it too seriously and wanting it to be something it's not. So I don't know. I'm wanting a darker, more serious movie instead of this. I mean, I get it's a comic book, so that's probably part of the issue. And I think I just want something out of it that it's not. And I just don't get what everybody sees in it, because it's, I mean, other than it's a cool character and a little dark, it's just a over-the-top bad guy, over-the-top hero. It's, I don't know.
Yes, and exactly what you're saying, the over-the-top part, is exactly what comics, teenage life, angst, emotions, hormones, etc. It all lines up with this movie. I don't think that I can identify with his character now, but it takes me back to how I used to feel like this is important man. Like, watching it with the person that introduced it to me or whatever, we would look at each other and say, oh, that moment when she reaches out for him and her hand flutters just a little bit. Like, we were focusing on the teeniest little minute details like they really meant something. So is the film great on its own? Maybe not, but what it does is it consistently identifies all of the emotion and stuff that I can usually grab onto. And I don't see you as a super emotional guy to begin with, so if that's what the movie is, like pure, raw, dripping teenage angst and emotion, it's not going to sit well with you, and I can understand that.
It's funny, what you're kind of describing is what Alex Proyas is now. Completely overwrought and campy. That's kind of who Alex Proyas grows up to be.
But I mean, it's
well,
this movie.
But you know what? After this, he has that 4-year hiatus, and he makes Dark City, which we really, really like on the show. And I mean, I don't like iRobot at all, but I was excited about it because there was this guy who was conceivably going to progress to that next level. And then I like knowing, I think it's a more mature, interesting, creative story, but as a podcast, I think I was definitely the only one that liked it. And then with Gods of Egypt, it showed that he's got to make a paycheck at some point, you know? I don't know if he's really been able to fully access everything as a director after Dark City.
I don't know. I mean, I just think of a movie like Sin City and how much better that is than this, at least for me, like far and away better. And I don't know why. I don't know. It took it serious enough. It was still campy, and it was more stylish, more. I don't know. I'm thinking more. This is kind of like on par with Demolition Man, and I'm wanting it to be up here with something like Sin City.
Very interesting. Okay, because Sin City came into my head a number of times watching this one. They're both Dimension films as well, so that works out pretty well. But Robert Rodriguez's version of this, and Frank Miller for that matter too, it's brutal. It's very exciting to look at and whatnot. But that one to me seems a bit more like, I don't know. Maybe it's less honest to me. Robert Rodriguez's mind, to me, is a bit more. We've talked about this on the show, masturbating on screen. Robert Rodriguez, to me, is a bit more masturbatory than Alex Proyas. He seems to be identifying The Crow as a movie that's like, yeah, we're not going to show somebody's head flying off or whatever, but we are going to show you, like, needles in the chest or whatever. He's getting down to the revenge part of it. What do we want to see for that? And Sin City is just a bit more sophomoric to me because
Sin City should have won the Oscar that year.
You know what? I don't
Terrible
disagree.
Year for movies.
I don't disagree with you. Actually, we'll get a chance to talk about that, and I have it on my list in a spot.
Devil's Rejects isn't mine. Which, again, another movie better than The Crow. But anyway, continue.
I do think that it should have won Best Picture that year. That's not demeaning Sin City versus its peers in that year at all. But
sophomoric is.
No, because sophomoric can be good. Like, I love Borat. It's toilet humor, for crying out loud. Everything has its spot. Sin City has its spot, but I would rather watch The Crow any day over Sin City because of just how it speaks to me more. You know, I see Sin City as a bit more. I'm looking for the word that isn't masturbatory, but also great. Exploitative, maybe?
Maybe.
I think when it comes to the over the top nature of The Crow, I think that's an essential part of the story. I think actually that playing it as big as they do is, you know, this is a grand love story. Plus, it's kind of it's got arcs that are not unlike a musical in many ways. I mean, we're talking about something that's kind of like in some ways it's like a zombie Phantom of the Opera kind of thing. Like the emotions are supposed to be big and grand, and he's supposed to play it big and broad, as is the villain is supposed to play it big and broad. And really everybody's playing a little bit big and broad because that's kind of what this universe calls for.
Yeah.
So did Stallone and Wesley Snipes. But anyway, continue. They did.
That's a very interesting comparison that
I don't know why that movie pops in my head, but I mean, just over-the-top characters. I mean, yeah, there's no emotion in it. Not too much, at least. There could have been. There should have been. But.
I'm not going to identify with goth culture, per se. But everyone that I knew that really, really loved The Crow, like to the point where people were wearing the outfit to school, not on Halloween, that kind of thing. I got along with a few of those individuals, and it was a very small crowd in my school, and they loved The Crow. Like, it was life, okay? And, I mean, for crying out loud, you've got The Cure as the #1 song on the soundtrack. We know what we're getting into if we see something that has The Cure front and center, right? So I guess I don't mind how big and bold it is, because that's exactly what it's trying to be. It's trying to be The Cure on screen.
And I'm not trying to say it's bad. I think the character's cool looking. He kind of acts cool. And then I see the movie, I'm just like, it's fine, I guess. But then everybody talks about how artistic and great it is. I'm like, no, it's a comic book movie. I mean, it's the idea of it to me is cooler than the movie itself. But that's just me. I don't know. Of a $23 million budget, it made $56 million, something like that, which is reasonably successful, especially for Dimension Films at the time. They had a good 1994, for crying out loud.
Don't see the sequels.
Oh my God. Pieces of shit. Yeah, I was so excited for City of Angels. I went opening night to the theater, and
poor bastard.
Iggy Pop and
Goo Goo Dolls and Alanis Morissette.
Bush, Hole. Actually, the whole song is pretty fucking good. So,
yeah, but that's The Crow. Anything else before we move on?
I love it. See it. Don't listen, Bob. Actually, no. Of all of the films that I would recommend, I would imagine I probably wouldn't recommend The Crow to most people.
Yeah, you did kind of say seeing it now might not work the same as seeing. You said that earlier in your review. All right.
Since this is Aunt Bethany's 80th Christmas, I think she should lead us in the saying of grace.
What, dear? Grace! Grace! She passed away 30 years ago.
I would love to tell you about 89, but the page that had it on it just dropped off. So do you have them at your disposal?
Not a whole lot that went on in 89. Criminal Law, K9, Loverboy, Miss Firecracker Scandal, Fast Food, The Horror Show.
Okay, I've seen Loverboy, Patrick Dempsey. I don't remember liking it. Thank you. I almost wanted to introduce Blues Brothers as the classic this week, just to go against Jim Belushi, because I hate him so much. And K9, saw that in the theater in 1989. Ugh. I mean, my dad really liked Jim Belushi, and he liked K9.
There's only one thing I remember about that movie. You can figure out what it is? You didn't remember seeing it?
It's been so long.
No.
It's the scene in the bar where the dog is holding the guy's nuts.
Oh, yeah. I remember that now.
That's the only thing I remember about that piece of shit movie. I had to see it like 15 times, though, as a kid, because it was always on television, and my mom watched it a lot for some reason.
Was that possibly in the trailer?
That may have been in the trailer, too.
Because I do remember that scene. I can't remember.
So basically, Belushi's trying to interrogate a guy, and the dog gets the guy up against the wall and bites his crotch, and is basically threatening to chomp down on his nuts.
Yeah, he just kind of holds his nuts in his mouth.
And he goes into the scene like basically he's doing good cop, bad cop with a dog. Like he's interrogating the guy like, I don't want the dog to do it, but he'll do it. If you don't tell us the truth, he's gonna do it. Like the dog is Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon.
If anybody can pull it off, it's Jim Belushi, though. maybe Tim Allen.
Oy.
All right, K9 or Top Dog with Chuck Norris, which one?
Turner and Hooch. Honestly, I mean, that's the crapshoot.
That's the Fishing with Gandhi of the dog cop universe.
I think I'd go K9. I don't know.
Yeah, they're all shitty, including Turner and Hooch.
But yeah, that was 89.
Nothing exciting. I didn't watch any of those this week from lack of interest. So,
yeah. Other than Loverboy, that was the only one I really was aware of. Next week, I got low battery. We got El Chicano, The Intruder, Long Shot, Ugly Dolls. Our classic will be The Candidate.
What is The Candidate?
Robert Redford, 1970 something.
Oh, ooh, a Redford 70s movie.
Coming back?
I think it's very likely that you will see me popping up on comments and watching along just because. Why not?
But yeah, do you want to do the other thing as a bonus then? Or
I'm happy to do that. I would at least separate it from the show. That seems to make some sense.
All right, then that is our show. Josh, you said you wanted a few minutes at the end.
I did, yeah. Okay, so I've been on the show for a little over 6 years now. I've already mentioned a little bit over a month ago that it was one of the highlights of my life. It continues to be. But you guys are going to be wonderful going forward. I was your biggest fan other than another guy that lives in the West and is coming closer to us now. Before I came on, I was a fan as I was on, and I'm a fan as I'm leaving. You don't give yourself quite enough credit. I listen to not as many podcasts as you guys do, but I'm very discerning. It's a good show. You guys are great. Like, I've enjoyed listening to our own product more than I've enjoyed anyone else's product. And that has almost nothing to do with me, because when I hear myself, I have been like, oh, you bastard, you're breathing too heavy, or something like that. So I've enjoyed all of it, all of the hand-wringing, all of the shared joy, all of the differing opinions, all of the bringing ourselves to the point of yelling, all of the bringing ourselves to the point of genuine tears because we've enjoyed the movie that much. When we've come together on certain things and we've had no idea that each of us would have loved it as much as we did, all of the little gems that we've seen because of the show. Like, I probably would have never seen Enemy. I probably would have never seen Under the Skin. Or at least it would have taken me a long time to do so. Those were early on, but gosh, think about everything that we've encountered since then. I thought when I came on the show, because amongst friends, I had knowledge and I had opinions till the cows come home. But everything since then has been blown out of the water for me. I listen better because of this show. I care more because of this show. A lot of things that have happened in my life since 2013 are because of the way that we've edited each other. Working together is sometimes a pretty difficult thing to do, especially when you've got people that have three distinct personalities. And before I came on here, I didn't know how to work with people as well. It was more, how can this person adapt to me? How can I be nice until I don't have to be around them anymore? Stuff like that. I've really discovered a lot about who I am. And I'm in this position right now, super happy, at home with a wife, close to my boy, in large part because of the time that I've spent here. Every single week, save for one or two, since I started coming on, even in the weeks that have been kind of down in terms of not being excited about something to talk about, there's always something. There's always a joke to make. I've always been looking to insert myself somehow, and it's the only time in my life where that's ever happened. So I thank both of you from the bottom of my heart for letting me be a part of it for as long as you did. And I can't possibly thank you enough, actually. For dealing with my chronic inability to check time, for my chronic inability to watch as many as I say I'm going to watch, and for also not finishing all of the projects that I thought would come to fruition. I'm the worst manager of time you'll ever see, and that's obviously true. All the things that we've talked about doing over time, a good portion of it that didn't happen is because I didn't do it.
Not fair.
Life happens, but I bit off more than I could chew. But I won't bite off more than I can chew now. I'll end now. 5 minutes later. See, I took more time than I said I was going to. But really, thank you guys. I really, it's been a great joy of my life. And I will hit you up all the time. I'm still your number one fan.
Should I have to record that?
Honestly, though, I think we're all better people for this, and the amount of vulnerability and self-exploration that's gone into this is invaluable. You know, you can't put a price on that, because we do make this personal, and we do plumb the depths, even when we don't think we're going to.
Sometimes the depths are...
we pushed each other into those directions for whatever reason.
No, and I know I have my ideas of what to do going forward, and I know Sean does too. And one, it's an open invitation whenever you feel like it. If you want to come back next week, you're more than welcome to.
Sit down and watch the candidate, and he's going to go, I got this to say. And
so I'm hoping, and I feel like ever since you've announced that you're leaving, I'll be honest, I've kind of like the last year has almost just been like we haven't had that magical episode, and then it's just been, I feel like the last 5 weeks have just been bang, 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 So, if it gets to the point where it's just like you see something want to come on, and with no pressure, I wonder if you're more than welcome to, if we get a third host, or I don't know if it'll be a full-time host, or we'll run in guests, or regardless, there will be an open mic for you whenever you want it. Charlie Messing's really going to enjoy that. He does not think we can pull this off.
That's much appreciated. And, I think what that's going to mean is how much do I have to say? And is talking to a wall like I did before I met you guys in this setting, is it going to be sufficient? I've run out of things to say in a constructive manner for most movies. I've kind of lost that joy of going to the movies. I've said this before, Sean. I don't even know how you do it, man. I mean, 4 or 5 a week sometimes, and I'm sitting there after one like, well, thank God I can stretch my legs now, for Christ's sake. Sitting for 6 hours in the theater on Thursday and getting out and my legs are just destroyed. Something magical needs to happen to me at the theater to get me to rediscover that same kind of love. It's the movies themselves that have really done that. Right. And it's not that there aren't great movies to watch, but I've been stuck on a favorite for a long time, and before that I was stuck on a favorite. I need a little re-energizing.
That moment will come where you get out of the theater and you're like, I need to talk to somebody about it. And we're here. With that, I do want to thank our Patreon supporters for supporting the podcast. We'll start with our key grip level, Charlie Messing and Jason Bryant, the Hall of Famer.
And then another.
Charlie's so happy right now. Our character actors, Christina Cato, Cousin Jeff, and Josh and Beth Paul.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Cousin Jeff also, I never mentioned this on the show, but he's got his own TeePublic site where I've purchased a few things from. He's got this awesome Darth Gator.
Yeah.
I got the mug. I gave a sticker away to Corey from IVNV. On top of that, there's a bunch of cool Golden Girls stuff. I'm not a big Golden Girls fan, but
yeah,
if you're into that, I mean, he does all sorts of other artwork.
I've got Cousin Jeff artwork hanging up in my house right now.
Darth Gator is him. That is he himself.
Yeah,
he's such a great costumer.
He's amazing. You guys haven't even seen what the depths of like his Halloween work is off the charts.
Oh, the zombie Arthur, the Taco Bell from Beauty and the Beast. Like, those are the three that I'm thinking off the top of my head.
He did the most amazing Courtney Love that anybody's ever seen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but check out his TeePublic page, too.
Today is Jeff's birthday,
That
by
is
the
true.
way.
Oh, yeah.
Happy birthday,
That's
Jeff.
right. May the force be with you.
Speaking of that, our special effects level, Sarah Morrell and Corey Finneran.
May the force be with you.
Our associate producer, Jason Mollett.
Everybody has to eat shaving cream once in a while.
And our movie stars, Dave Severs and Uncle Jeff.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
If you want to be a Patreon supporter, head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon. And if you want to stop being a supporter because Josh is gone, that's where
Bye, Charlie.
That's where you go to.
You know what, though? I did not thank the audience or anything like that, but please keep in mind, thank you very much for listening to our show. Thank you for contributing any dollars, time, effort that you have. I certainly appreciate that. It certainly keeps us, being able to do certain things and gives you guys the opportunity to look forward in the future as well. Thank you very much for supporting us. And honestly, I can't believe that you've accepted me as somebody that's on the show. Like, it's one of the biggest surprises of my life has been, they don't hate me. Or if they do, they're very quiet about it.
You know what bugs me is that Severs is one of my closest friends in the world. I've known him for 35 years, 36 years, and I'm afraid he might stop listening because Josh is not going to be here anymore.
Oh, no!
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of, Bob doesn't see anything.
That's not. In fact, some of the things you know what, I wonder what the actual count is, but aside from 89 stuff, I feel like you've been far more proactive in getting to the theater as much as you possibly can, and you see things that are definitely not like at the forefront of me watching things. Documentaries, Lords of Chaos is still sitting in the front position in Amazon for me, and I haven't watched it, so you unearth some things that are necessary.
But there's a million projects we've started, never finished, some out of our control. We have our ideas, and we'll kind of slowly get those going. And but you always have there's always a seat here for you. I do have 4 microphones if we do get a third host. So I guess we'll leave it at that, and we'll end the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evening is over. We hope you all enjoyed yourselves, and we'll see you all again in 1974. Good evening!
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the 3 best friends that anybody could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best 3 friends that anybody can have. I mean the 3 best friends that anybody can have.